Hey guys, this is Ghost Queen. And welcome back to another video. Today I am so happy to announce that I have finally been able to create a pattern digitally. This is always something that I've been wanting to do, but now that I've gotten myself a tablet, I am able to draw digitally, and that also means that I can take the patterns that I've made and make them digital and have them readily available for you guys to download and use on your own. And I have been doing this hand-drawn for a while, but it's honestly a whole lot cleaner if I do it digitally, so that's what I've been wanting to do, and now the day has finally come, and I have released my first digital pattern. And that is my Monster High Size Plague Doctor mask. I mainly just had this as my first experimental pattern because of how small the pattern is, how few pieces there are, and things like that. And I've been wanting to do a tutorial on this for a while, ever since I made the Julian doll. So with all that said, let's get some stuff out of the way. First and foremost, this mask is probably the most material sensitive thing that I've ever made. So the materials that I list, unless I specifically say so, are not optional. Keep that in mind. With that, let me list up said materials. For the base of the mask, you will need some craft foam. This is very crucial that you use a thin, light craft foam and nothing else. This can be in whatever color you like. I'm just using this plain white, and yeah, it can be whatever color. You can paint it afterwards. For an adhesive, you will need hot glue, and I know there are other ways to glue craft foam, but for this, you will need hot glue. It's essential that the glue is hot. You also need a piece of elastic. If you can find colored elastic, that's great. If not, it'll be nice to have some fabric paint so you can paint over the elastic. You'll also need 2 jump rings. For Julian's mask, I made these little belt buckle type of things using epoxy, but it's a lot easier if you use jump rings. You'll also need a piece of clear packaging. They can come from anything. I'm pretty sure that you've seen this type of material before. It just needs to be sort of stiff and also clear. You'll also need 2 types of glaze. You'll need a gloss one and a matte one. I'm using Mod Podge. You could probably honestly use anything as long as it's safe to use on craft foam, and absolutely do not use nail polish. Do not. You'll also need some acrylic paints of your choice. I just randomly grabbed a bunch here. You can use whatever colors you want. And finally, you will need a water-based pigment. This is also important. I will be using these super duper cheap kids grade watercolors. If they're water-based, they should work, but yeah, don't quote me on that. Another thing that I'm absolutely sure will work is a water-based marker. It can honestly be a Crayola marker, it just has to be water-based. And not necessarily a material, but you'll also need a pair of scissors to cut out your pieces. Now let's get started. So the first step is to cut out your pattern. I'm just using the original version, and yeah, you just take that and then you trace it onto your foam. In case you were curious, no, you do not need a seam allowance. You can just trace around it and cut it out. Nothing else required. Once you have your pieces, take the largest sort of beak-shaped ones, hold them together, and then glue down this curved end right here. While waiting for that to cool, take this piece and then glue them together like this. There's a little bit of a gap in between, but just kind of fill that in with glue. While that's cooling down, take the top piece and then glue this notch together, kind of like this. Okay, I sort of made a mistake. I kind of glued them together side by side like all the other pieces. Actually, what you're supposed to do is let it overlap a tiny bit, kind of like this. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Then take this piece and then arrange this piece so that it kind of sits on the curve that's right here, and then glue that seam together. If there's any gaps, just fill it in with the hot glue. I don't know if I was filming that, but this is what it looks like now. Next, you want to take this piece and then glue it under this top piece, like this. Same for the other side, and make sure that the eye holes are actually circles and not anything looking stupid. Finally, take this piece, with the glue side down, glue it onto the bottom of the mask. And it's going to stick out a little bit, but that's okay, you can trim it off later. Here I've just trimmed off some weird, awkward bits and then sealed off the edges with a little bit more hot glue, and this is the basic shape of the mask. Something that I did for Julian's was coat the entire thing in hot glue and then sort of carved in this part, this indented part, using the nozzle. And that gives you some really cool 3D details, and I think I'm going to do that again because it was a lot of fun and it was an easy way to create these details. So here I finished hot gluing the entire thing, and I've marked up where I want to make the indents with a pen, and I'm just going to press in the heated nozzle of my hot glue gun so that I can just sort of carve through the glue. Now while that's cooling down, I'm going to be making the lens. For that, you're going to need the clear piece of plastic, the gloss, whatever the heck you have, and also the water-based pigment. Since I'm using these cheap watercolors, I'm just going to take an X-Acto knife and I'm going to scrape at the surface as much as I possibly can. Come on. Once you got a fair amount of pigment, I'm gonna put my Mod Podge over all this dust I have, and I'm gonna mix it all up. Once your pigment has been all mixed up, you want to spread it onto your plastic. So while that dries, I'm going to be going in and painting the mask. For this, you'll need to use acrylic paint because this thing is essentially made out of plastic and anything else is not going to stick. Now that everything has been painted, I'm going to take some of the matte Mod Podge and I'm going to be coating the entire thing. Okay, so I kinda made a mistake for when the jump rings go on. You're supposed to sew them on after the structure of the mask is complete, and then coat the whole thing with glue. I forgot to do that, so I had to go in with super glue to glue them both on. And, yeah, that was a really messy process. I super glued like 3 of my fingers together, so I did not film it, but now they're on. I had to make a new piece for the eye holes because I was stupid. Quick tip, if you're using a dry powder pigment, I recommend mixing it with a tiny bit of water before putting it in your Mod Podge, or else your thing will be grainy. So anyway, I'm just going to cut my piece in half here and then see how it looks inside the mask. I don't recommend cutting it into a circle, I recommend just keeping it into a square. Just trim it a little bit if you need to, kind of like this. Then have the glued side on the inside and the smooth, unglued side on the outside, and then take some hot glue and glue it in like so. I'm just going to take the elastic, loop it through the jump ring, if I can manage to do that, and then glue it into place. And you're honestly done! I hope you guys liked this video. I hope this tutorial was helpful in figuring out this needlessly complicated pattern. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!